Another year, another Marvel Netflix show. Last year it was Luke Cage. The year before it was Jessica Jones with Daredevil Season 2. And also before that we had our first escapade, if you will, into the Marvel Netflix universe. And now today is Marvel's Iron Fist, a new show that has gotten a bit of controversy because, well, not really controversy, more of a non-controversy, as I like to say, about the casting of Finn Jones as the Iron Fist. Why? Well, according to some news outlets, it is because he's white and it should have been played by an Asian. Talk about stereotyping when there shouldn't really be stereotyping. But let's talk about the show itself. How does it hold up? Well, it picks up with Danny Rand as he is returning to New York after being presumed dead for 15 years. And like any normal sane people, when Danny Rand gets into the office of the Meachums, who have since taken over the business from Danny Rand's father and the Meachums' father, as they control Rand Industries, like any sane people, they'd be like, oh, I don't think you're real, so we're gonna have you go to a mental institution. And that's where episode 2 takes us into it. But like episode 2 is more about, mental stuff. But yeah, it just also so happens that Danny Rand, upon coming back, also knows some really fucking awesome kung fu moves. And that is one of the best parts about the show, is that after the first 6 episodes, which are a bit sluggish and probably some of them could be cut down just a bit more to say about 45 minutes apiece, I do think that this show has a lot of good stuff about it. But the main problem that I see with this one is... Actually, I see 2 problems with this show. 2 major problems. The first one is Finn Jones as Iron Fist. And it's not because he's white. It's actually because he's just a bit bland in the role. Not really bland, per se, but just kind of like a character that is so pent up with rage and a lot of anger towards the people who have wronged him when he was younger by taking away his parents' lives. He doesn't really have that sort of gravitas that needs to be associated with that type of a character. I don't know who else could have been casted for Iron Fist, but I feel like maybe this version of Danny Rand might serve well better in The Defenders, because he does feel like he could be a character that could play off of other different characters. As for the other factor is that there is some wasted potential, I feel. There's... In episode 6, this is just slight spoilers. In episode 6, Madame Gao offers Danny an invitation to a fight between the Hand's sort of top fighters that they could find. And there's so many cool characters that he comes across in the fights themselves that it would have been interesting to see them expanded upon in maybe future episodes or whatnot, but they never really touched back on that. And that's just kind of a wasted potential I felt with that particular episode. But aside from that, it talks about, philosophies. It talks about it talks about sort of this sort of behavior that we have been exuding for the past like decade or so. Whenever it comes to like social media, there's always this sort of black and white sort of mentality with maybe social movements and whatnot. And there's a really nice little conflict between Colleen Wing and Danny Rand, where I feel like that sort of aspect about the conflicting sort of nature between one side saying that they're actually good people and the other side saying, well, no, these people are bad and we should eliminate them. It's this nice little commentary about how society has become a bit sort of black and white when it comes to issues. And it's just interesting. It's a little bit interesting, that little conflict that they had. But unfortunately, because the main lead is a little bit uninteresting, it leaves the sort of supporting characters to be better than the lead. Like the son of Howard Meachum, I can't exactly remember his name. He was very interesting. He had a nice little arc. He had this sort of thing where he had to hide the secret that Harold Meachum, who had also been presumed dead, is still alive due to the hand interfering with his death and like giving him some sort of immortality, if you will. And it's sort of like it's sort of interesting, that sort of subplot, and then him going to the mental institution in like episode 11 and 12 really kind of shapes it. Like he's going mad because he can't tell his sister anything. He can't tell him. They can't tell her anything about it. Of course, this show also has cameo appearances by Claire. She's kind of like this character that connects all of them. She's like the Agent Coulson, I feel, to the Defenders universe, because if you noticed, like almost every single movie of Phase 1, at least, had Agent Coulson in some capacity. It's very interesting how they also put Claire in this Marvel Defenders sort of universe as well, acting like this same sort of through line. This character that's supposed to be the center, that's supposed to be our center looking in. Unfortunately, Claire is not really in it that much, but when she is there, she gives some of the best comedic parts. It's like it's kind of honestly a real nice refresher to have have Claire in this sort of thing. I really enjoyed that part. Aside from that, the editing of this show can be a bit jarring at times, and it just feels like it's, I don't know, I don't want to say it's terrible editing, it's just kind of jarring in certain areas in some episodes. Another problem I found with this show was some of the pacing issues. Like the first 6 episodes especially is the sluggish part. You got to kind of get through it, kind of take some brief notes, because then as soon as episode 7 hits, it hits the ground running with what it's wanting to do. But the last 2 episodes of the season are probably my favorite episodes of the entire season. Not only because they're well paced, but also because they have some really nice character moments, and there's even one section where they have some really good, effective subtextual framing that I really enjoy. I really enjoy some of that. They introduce a couple new characters as well towards the latter half of the season. Davos being Danny Rand's friend from Kung Lung. Which his character, to me is kind of screaming Baron Mordo in terms of motivation at the end of the season. It's kind of odd to me how Marvel's like, you know what, let's take this sort of character motivation over here and take that character motivation and also put it with this character. It's kind of odd to me. It just screamed sort of Baron Mordo from Doctor Strange at the end of the season. But again, I really did enjoy this season. While I didn't think it's as good as, say, Daredevil Season 2 or even Daredevil Season 1, it's still kind of good. I'm not going to say here that it's terrible. Not 17% terrible like Rotten Tomatoes is making it out to be. It's definitely a slow-burning show. I will definitely tell you that. It's going to test your patience in the first 6 episodes. But after that, it gets more and more interesting. But it's not necessarily with the main character, it's more with the side characters. And that's a little bit disappointing about the show. Is that for a show that's titled Iron Fist, the Iron Fist himself is not that interesting. But hopefully they'll make him a bit more interesting in the Defenders this summer when they release the Defenders Netflix series. So, my overall score for Marvel's Iron Fist is a solid 6 out of 10. It's not a terrible show, but it does have its strong points that I really feel is a little bit overlooked. A little bit underdeserved. So, yeah, don't let the critical backlash towards the show because it's whitewashing take away from the effectiveness of later episodes. Because when you really look at it, the reviewers on that site only looked at the first 6 episodes, and that's all they were given, was the first 6 episodes, by the way. We, the people who now have all 13 episodes, can actually decide for ourselves what is actually good, But I do honestly think that Iron Fist is a nice solid 6 out of 10. It's not terrible. It just has some problems, and it is fun. It definitely is some fun to it. So yeah, let me know down in the comment section below. Are you excited for Marvel's Defenders? What do you think of Iron Fist if you've watched it? Do you think, the reviewers on Rotten Tomatoes are just wrong at this point? We'll see where it goes. But yeah, until next time, I'll see you at the movies. Peace.